Hello, everyone. This is Jim Grisanzio from San Francisco. I'm on the Oracle Groundbreakers team, and this is Oracle Code 1 in San Francisco, and I'm here with Wim Coekaerts. Wim.
Hi, Jim.
So
Jim
welcome.
and Wim.
Yeah, so this is sort of my annual meeting with Wim. Whenever I go to a conference, especially if we're in San Francisco, I like to just grab Wim and talk about developers and just trends out there, especially around Linux and cloud and things like that. So, Wim, you are the SVP of development here. And before we get started, I know you've got 2 or 3 talks, here at the conference. This is day 1, and we're about halfway through. Just wondering what your impressions are of the show so far.
Well, it's a great open world. I'm very excited. Every year is a little bit different, and I think this year, from a developer point of view, there's a lot of new stuff, which is really cool. Certainly this week, there's going to be a lot of announcements that developers will really enjoy, and I think to a certain extent might be surprised about as well. One of my roles this week, to a certain extent, I guess, is to bring more the message of what we're doing across all of the different development activities at Oracle, right? We have a lot of stuff, whether it's high-level Fusion applications and extending that using something like Visual Builder, or we have, of course, the database with Application Express or SQL, and then making that easier, or we have Oracle Cloud. So there's all these different areas. We have Java with Grow, there's the generic developer community, there's the Oracle developer community, and what's happened typically is every group talks to their local developer crowd, and there's a lot of new stuff, but it doesn't give a full picture of the company. And so we're doing sort of an extra effort to start being more broad about all the different pieces of technology that we have and the different types of developer programs. So that's part of what I'm doing this week, and then there's of course a lot of new Linux stuff that's very exciting this week that will be announced. There's some new cool stuff that's announced. And it's just a great show. There's a very positive vibe that I've seen so far. I started yesterday with a Linux customer advisory board where we invite a bunch of customers. And so yeah, today is already looking pretty good. A lot of press and analysts. My talks tomorrow, the first one is Enterprise Manager and Oracle Management Cloud, which is going to be great. It's sort of talking about the future direction of Enterprise Manager, which has a huge customer base. It's a product that's been used for database customers forever, for managing the database in particular. There's other stuff too, but that's the core. And then Oracle Management Cloud, which we're integrating into OCI itself so that it's a fully integrated experience. And so talk a bit about the roadmap there and some really cool new stuff on the EM side. Then my other talk is the Linux State of the Penguin.
Oh, okay.
I do that every year.
Every single year, yeah.
And so talk about what we've done in the last year and what we're working on that hopefully is exciting for a lot of people. And then on Wednesday, there's a solutions keynote with Ali Alasti. So I talk about let's say the software stack of the house, and Ali talks about the hardware side in the context of cloud, not just on premises, but also what we're doing in hardware innovations and software innovations as it's related to Oracle Cloud. So those are the 3 talks that I'm doing, and then just talking to customers and developers here.
Yeah. So when we spoke last in Singapore, I guess it was back in March or so, your keynote at the time, you talked a lot about ksplice. You talked a lot about kernel patching. You said something about 8 milliseconds or something like that, as some jet quick way of patching a kernel live, and also patching the user space as well, which would be actually a little bit more complex. You said, and we also talked about why the developer matters, right? Mm-hmm. As more evolution happens in terms of migration into the cloud. Is there anything new on the ksplice front that we can talk about here?
So, yeah, there's a couple of things. So it's 8 microseconds.
Microseconds,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
so what did I say?
Milliseconds.
Milliseconds. Yeah, so what's the distinction?
You're a factor off there. You really don't notice it. It's just a few CPU instructions. It's basically unnoticeable, right? Anyway, I'm just teasing. There's an interesting, so there's not a lot new on ksplice itself, although this was March. So exploit detection, I think I mentioned
Yeah, there was a
exploit
lot
detection.
of, we had a lot of conversations
Yeah.
about the exploits.
And so that one is now production, and basically what we do is in some cases, security bug fixes have the abuse pattern is very specific. And when there's a specific pattern, we can write code that basically allows us to alert the sysadmin that somebody is trying to abuse a certain vulnerability. Of course, we fix the vulnerability, but then we can alert them as well. And so we have a log message on the OS that says this process with this process name with this process ID and this user at this point in time was trying to abuse CVE 2019-20. Right, and so the cool part of this is that even though your operating system is secure, if somebody's trying something, even if they fail, you still want to know, right? And this helps you with that, or helps the customer with that. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing is, autonomous database is a very popular service in Oracle Cloud. It's popular not just for the DBAs and for the production user of database, but it's also very popular for the developer because it's a service. Right. I want to store some data somewhere. I make an API call and my database service pops up as stuff data in it. It takes care of patching, it takes care of upgrades, it takes care of security. I just need to connect to it and stuff things in it, right? And so people really like that concept. Now, part of that is that we manage the database software stack. We also manage the operating system stack. So we patch the OS for you, and we do all these things in an online fashion that doesn't affect the service. So you'll see us do more of that for people to directly access some of this technology. But the thing that we've learned over time is that so DevOps is popular, the whole model of, you have a CI/CD pipeline, you bring stuff up, and it's kind of fire and forget, right? You write some new code, it goes through the build system, it tests things out, and it gets deployed in an environment. Now, there's two parts to this. So one is, when a developer does this, if this is it can be a microservice, but a microservice doesn't mean it's a short-lived service. Right, microservice means you break down large tasks into small tasks, but those small tasks can still run for, hours, weeks, days, months, whatever. Right. So what happens when you need to patch? Right, so some people say, oh, well, we can just bring these things down and bring new versions back up. But that's not always possible. And so by introducing more of ksplice online patching, whether it's user space or kernel, and doing OS updates, we can actually help the post-deployment of a microservice. Okay. Right? And you, as a developer, you don't have to go and talk to a sysadmin or whoever owns the image to say, hey, do you have the latest patches applied and stuff like that? And so we're very eager to help solve that problem. Right? And so the idea being that as a developer, when you start a new instance, you're secure. When you're running an instance 2 months later, you're still secure. And you didn't have to do anything. Right? So that saves developers time because they're app people. Right? They don't have to go and deal with sysadmin stuff. Some people like that, I like that, but an app developer doesn't necessarily care. Like somebody that writes Java code, they care about Java, Graal. They don't necessarily care about OS patches and kernels and reboots and stuff like that. So you'll see a lot more of that coming from us.
So is this already implemented or is it in the pipeline?
Both.
Both, okay.
Yeah, it'll be exciting stuff.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, ksplice is available today. It's just that we're helping make that easier. I'd say that's probably a good hint.
Good. Good. Okay. So these are good things for developers to see coming along because presumably, and you can correct me, it should be able to allow them to be more innovative because it's sort of relieving them from being involved in certain tasks, right?
Exactly. It's you can focus on what you need to focus on and don't worry about everything else. Right. And the other thing that we as in the larger Oracle is, over the years we've looked at what are sort of the I wouldn't call them roadblocks. It's more annoyances that developers have to write stuff using our technologies. And one example is, we have this thing called the Oracle Instant Clients. If you want to connect to the database, then you have to, let's say I write Python code, right? And with Python, I need to connect to an Oracle database. Well, in that case, I need to install the Instant Client binaries. And so you have to download them from oracle.com, install them, and then you can run it. And so developers don't want to download stuff anymore. It's just bundled with everything
Right.
else. And so Instant Client is a good example where we now bundle that along with other stuff. So we have Docker images on Docker Hub or on Oracle Container Registry. We have projects on GitHub where we now take these binaries and include them into either source control or in the Docker instances. And so developers don't have to go and download separate things anymore to use our products. So, so those are, like on Maven, the JDBC driver. So we're really we're making it easier for developers to write against our products. Autonomous database is a great example, right? And one thing that you see happen is people don't want to install software anymore. Fundamentally, that's what's happening, right? I don't want to install a database. Okay, so some groups then say, oh, can we have Oracle installed in a Docker image? And while that's kind of cool, if you have a service, it's much easier. You make a REST API call and you get your database wallet and you're done, right? And so that type of stuff really solves the problem.
Interesting.
And sometimes, and this is just my personal opinion, sometimes I think containers are overloaded and it's like everything has to be a container. No, some stuff can be a service, right? You use containers for your own things, but you don't necessarily have to package everything into that. Right, a database can just be a service you call and connect to. And even for developers, even if it's on premises, you have a database installed somewhere and use PDBs. Right? You don't have to have your local Docker instance installing all this stuff or running it. You just make a PDB for what you need. And that's very similar to what we provide with Autonomous Database, where of course we do all the other stuff around as well. So we're really focused on sort of the ease of use, across the stack. And Oracle Cloud is really great to have, right? Because it allows us to take all these different things and package them together and then provide developers with like a full stack pre-configured. We can install things for you on the fly and you push one button, you get it. So it's a great vehicle for folks to learn about our technology and for us to solve problems as well.
Excellent. Okay, you mentioned a couple of bits there I want to follow up on, specifically GitHub and Graal, and I think you mentioned FN in there as well. So maybe we can talk for a few minutes just about some of the open source projects that Oracle engineers are involved with. I mean, I know your team is heavily involved with Linux community and contributing upline and and all that. But we also have a fair number of projects on GitHub, and from what I can see, more and more projects are going there. Anything to share on there?
Well, I think in general, one of the things, so we have a lot of technologies across the board, and Oracle as a company is in so many different spaces, right? You have Fusion applications, and then developers that extend Fusion applications, and they can use Visual Builder for that, or they can write stuff using Jet directly or something like that. And so that's sort of the higher level application developer. And then underneath that, you have the database developers, and they use Java or Python or just pure SQL, or they use Application Express. Then you have the OCI team where you have SDKs for the various services. You have APIs exposed. With Oracle Functions, the way it's implemented in Oracle Cloud, you can create your own Docker instance or container instance, push it into a registry, and the function execution is really just whatever you uploaded in your instance, which is really powerful. You can basically do whatever you want inside. So you have all these different things. And so depending on who talks to whom, these different developers don't know about the other stuff. And so on GitHub, we're doing the same with GitHub as we're doing in general with their messaging, which is we have the GitHub/Oracle organization. We're putting all these different projects under one umbrella, and that exposes developers that are looking for one thing to also all the other things. And I think that's the number one aspect of what we're doing with GitHub. But we're expanding all the work on OCI, the Terraform contributions and all the plugins in that space, or whatever it is. So it's pretty comprehensive.
Actually, related to the GitHub message that you just said, I mean, when you actually opened up here, you were talking a little bit about how we can sort of unify, without having individual teams involved with individual point products, to have some more of a global some more of a global outreach, basically,
Yeah.
more of a global view,
Right.
on all these things. Because
Right.
as you mentioned, is a lot of different products, a lot
Right.
of different communities that
Yeah.
the company is involved with, the engineers are involved with.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and on the so GitHub obviously is open source stuff, but beyond just GitHub, it's the same problem. We have VirtualBox, we have MySQL, we have Java, we have Growl, we have all the Linux stuff, there's OCI stuff,
Right.
we have all these different projects that we either contribute to or we internally work on and then release. And so a developer typically tends to see one thing
Right.
and then say,
Right.
oh, Oracle is involved in this slice. And by bringing all this together, it makes it easier to say, look, we do so many different things that it changes the perception of a lot of people. They're like, oh,
Right.
we didn't know you had that. It's like, yeah, we do.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Wim, thank you very much for coming by. I appreciate it. I'm actually going to stop by a couple of your talks later on this week, and let's leave it there for now until the next event.
Okay.
Thanks a lot again.
Thank
And
you.
for you guys out there, we'll be back for more interviews here. We've got like 50 interviews lined up all week here, so stop back soon and we'll talk then. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.